Let's get right into it. Today, we're not just looking at some standard, dry school syllabus. No way. We're going to deconstruct a blueprint for building a real business from the ground up. This is the Year 10 Business Studies course, and I want you to look at it not just as a list of classes, but as a hands-on incubator for future entrepreneurs. It's a highly practical introduction to the world of business, economics, and entrepreneurship. By the end of this journey, these 14 and 15-year-old students aren't just memorizing terms or trying to stay awake in homeroom, they're actually designing, funding, and running their own real business. Okay, let's dive into this. To go from zero to launching a business, this curriculum tackles 5 core phases: the world of business, economics and market forces, consumer rights and finance, operations and market day, and finally, becoming an entrepreneur. So, our entrepreneurial map begins right here in the 2026 course calendar for Rutherford College's Commerce faculty. Check out their motto at the bottom, "Toe Hair," to strive for personal excellence. That is absolutely the exact mindset these Year 10 students are gonna need as they jump right into Term 1. Part 1, the world of business. Part 2, economics and market forces. Now, what's really interesting about this is that before you can play the game of business, you literally have to learn the invisible rules. So the very first major concept tackled in week 2 is scarcity. Why start there? Well, because scarcity is the absolute bedrock of all business logic. We have limited resources, like time, money, materials, but practically unlimited wants. A successful entrepreneur is really just someone who solves that puzzle of scarcity better than anyone else. And stemming directly from scarcity is the concept of opportunity cost, which they also hit in week 2. When resources are scarce, you've got to make choices, right? Like if a student decides to blow their limited startup capital on marketing, they just can't spend that same cash on better product materials. Every choice in business has a cost. Understanding this super early on in Term 1 trains these young minds to really evaluate the true weight of their decisions. By weeks 4 and 5, things shift to look at who is actually making these choices. The market is broken down into this massive push and pull interaction between producers and consumers to establish supply, demand, and ultimately, price. I mean, you can't sell a product if you don't understand the psychology of the person buying it, right? Moving on to Part 3, consumer rights and finance. And this brilliantly illustrates how the syllabus pivots from the big, sweeping rules of the economy straight down to individual empowerment. Notice that shift from the macro view of market interactions, like supply and demand, to the micro view of personal consumer behavior. Students are learning about what influences their own spending, their consumer rights, and vital financial literacy skills, like managing budgets and income. Basically, they're learning to protect and manage their own money before they go asking anyone else to invest in their ideas. So, how is all this theory actually tested? Well, there are 2 major milestones for Term 1. In week 6, there's a written test on those early market and economics concepts. But the real game changer is in week 10. The culmination of Term 1 isn't some multiple choice quiz, it's a financial decision-making portfolio. This proves they haven't just memorized facts, they've built real essential financial literacy skills that they can actually apply. Let's move to and see how this builds incredible momentum going into Term 2. They finish Term 1, locking in that financial portfolio. Then, boom, Term 2, week 1, they're already into product ideation. By week 5, they're submitting a business plan. And by week 6, they are launching at market day. So that foundational theory of Term 1 literally fuels the exciting hands-on application of Term 2. Part 4, operations and market day. This is where the magic happens. Students transition from being passive learners to active business operators. Spanning weeks 1 through 6 of Term 2, they start with product ideation and figuring out business roles. Then, in week 2, they get down to the nitty-gritty details. Defining aims, calculating costs, identifying target markets. They are taking those abstract concepts of supply and opportunity cost and slapping real numbers on them. The pace here is rapid. It's totally hands-on. By week 5, they've got to submit a formal business plan. And then comes the climax. Week 6 is market day. Their ideas become reality. They have to sell to real people, manage real operations, and handle real finance. But crucially, market day is immediately followed by individual reflections. They have to analyze what worked, what failed, and why, which, by the way, is exactly what real entrepreneurs do after a launch. And finally, Part 5, becoming an entrepreneur.
Weeks 7 and 8 are dedicated entirely to studying the skills and characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. They've just tried it themselves, so now they can really contextualize their own experience by looking at the greats. In week 9, this wraps up with a final assessment, where students present on an entrepreneur they've studied. It's an awesome project that solidifies incredibly valuable life skills, demanding clear communication, critical analysis, and confident public speaking.
So the crucial point is that when you step back and look at this complete journey, from that Rutherford College ethos in Term 1 all the way to the final presentations in Term 2, you're seeing a masterclass in structured learning. This course does so much more than just teach business vocabulary. It equips students with practical financial decision-making abilities, it forces teamwork, it demands problem-solving when costs just don't align, and it totally refines their communication. It really is an excellent foundation for any student who aspires to own a business one day. But beyond that, Year 10 Business Studies provides a clear, highly structured pathway directly into Level 1 Commerce and Senior Economics. It prepares them with the rigorous knowledge and practical skills they're going to need for success in further study and, honestly, whatever career path they choose down the road. These students walk away having actually done the thing most adults only talk about doing. They've built a business. So, looking at the incredible foundation this course provides, it leaves us with a pretty inspiring question to ask ourselves. If you have the financial tools, the understanding of the market, and the blueprint for a business plan, what will you build next? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.